Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar, themed Potential Pitfalls and New Realities in the Construction and Real Estate Industry due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate you joining us today, where we'll be listening to a number of erudite speakers drawing from their experience in different sectors of the real estate and construction industry in Nigeria, particularly Lagos State. My name is Imobonu Majemite. I'm the head of property law at PUNUKA Attorneys and Solicitors. And this webinar is being conducted in conjunction with the Construction and Infrastructure Chamber of Nigeria. PUNUKA Attorneys and Solicitors is a fully integrated and multidimensional business law practice with over 60 years of combined experience in litigation, corporate practice, and legal and consultancies / advisory services. It is a structured partnership with 5 partners and over 35 associates, and we practice across a diverse practice area, including oil and gas, energy law, property due diligence, debt recovery, and a host of other practice areas. Our head office is in Lagos, and we have our branches in Abuja and Asaba. On the other hand, the Construction and Infrastructure Chamber of Nigeria is a non-profit organization founded in 2012, and which is a network for all stakeholders in the Nigerian infrastructure and construction industry. And so practitioners, solicitors, advisors, regulators are all expected and encouraged to network and hobnob in this platform for ideas on how to move the industry forward. For information about joining the Construction and Infrastructure Chamber of Nigeria, please do an email to info@cicn-ng.org. It will be put in the chat group very soon for us to see. And for any legal inquiries that we may have, you can also send your questions to info@punuka.com. Very quickly, I would like to introduce my speakers with us this afternoon. First of all, I have Mr. Sijibomi Agbadaola. Mr. Agbadaola is the head of legal at Landway Investment Limited. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, sir. I also have Mr. Adeola Olusodo. He is the Deputy General Manager, Joint Ventures Department of the Lagos State Development and Property Corporation. Thank you for joining us, sir. And I also have Architect Bolaon Oki, who is the General Manager of the Lagos State Building Control Agency. I believe he would have joined us by now as well. And last but certainly not the least, by no means, I have my boss, the Leonard Silk, and my senior partner, Chief Anthony Idigbe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He would also be speaking to us this afternoon. Good afternoon, sirs, and welcome again to everyone who has joined us this afternoon. To have a feeler really of the profile of attendees that we have with us this afternoon, we're going to intermittently post a number of poll questions. So our first question is, do you think the process of applying for and obtaining building plan permits is seamless? That's a yes or no answer. Do we think it is seamless? Do we think it is not stressful? Do we think it is smooth, not cumbersome? What do we think? You can just vote and then let's have an idea. Can we have the results, please? Wow, everybody that voted said no, it is not seamless. Very well. So at least it means that, well, I'm hoping that some of our speakers here will be able to speak to the issue. Okay, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so let's get to the meat of the matter. I would be calling on my best speaker, the very erudite, very experienced lawyer and head of legal, Landway Investment Limited. Landway Investment Limited, I'm sure many of us will attest, is one of the fastest growing real estate companies that has ridden over the years on goodwill and continues to make giant strides. Initially, I understand they started as a real estate company, and then now they've moved into development, which shows a lot of progress. He's my friend, he's my brother, Mr. Sijibomi Agbadaola. If you could give us your presentation, sir.
Thank you very much, Mobo. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Good afternoon, House. As Mobo has rightly introduced, I am Shijibomi Agbadaola, and I head the legal team here at Landway Investment Limited. Without much ado, I am to talk on potential claims in construction and in the real estate industry due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Right. The real estate industry, as we know it, is a very unique and dynamic one, and particularly because for Lagos State, it is the oil of the city. It is what the state strives on majorly. Also puts it in a particular niche where it attracts so much attention. As it is, the real estate space is divided into major three scopes. If we look at it in the wider spectrum, you look at it from the residential space, the commercial space, and also the industrial space. So these are the three spectrums within which you can view real estate practices majorly within the industry. The realities of COVID-19 has had its impacts on this industry particularly, and much as we at Landway here operate at the residential space for now, and looking to delve into the commercial property space in the nearest future, there are instances where we felt the impact of the pandemic. It's a situation that nobody saw coming, and it as much as yielded or given us a second thought on how to do things. It has also given us the impetus to look into being a bit more proactive with certain things. The occurrence of the pandemic also has a lot of impact or implications for contracts majorly, and also engagements on various fronts. The real estate sector, as it exists, has various stakeholders in its operation. I will be focusing majorly on discussions from the developer's perspective as it relates also to other stakeholders, particularly the regulatory agencies, and also the contractors on the one hand, and also my clients on the other hand. Because if we are to talk on where these claims might likely emanate from, or are likely to emanate from as a result of the pandemic, these are the three major areas where claims can emanate from. One, on the part of the regulator, on the part of contractors, and of course, my my subscribers or my clients. So, which is why understanding what that entails usually will assist us in appreciating the solutions that might also be preferred in such regards. So, first off, nobody saw the pandemic coming, and the realities it has foisted on us as real estate developers. On the one hand, is we see a lot of snag in our project deliveries. Contractors, on the one hand, you also see begin to default on their obligations. And if we understand that this runs as a thread, in the sense that I work with the timeline based on I have an understanding with the contractor, supply me material A within social timeline, because I have a timeline of 2 weeks to meet on the project. And my client is expecting that, okay, you've given me a period of 3 weeks within which you're going to deliver XYZ units of buildings or whatever obligation to me. If the contractor who I have engaged as an integral part of the project defaults on his own obligation, as we saw during the pandemic, it automatically also puts a strain on my own delivery. So when the pandemic hit, I mean, there was a lot of delay in such instances, and then you see we began to have issues and claims from people saying, okay, I'm not able to meet up on my obligation. You all know what's happening. This pandemic was not envisaged, even for those that didn't have genuine reasons. I mean, it came in handy as a leverage or excuse in the circumstance. The other effects of the pandemic on development contracts or real estate development was also we saw a lot of requests for extension in tenure for delivery for those that could still say, oh, irrespective, we'll muscle our way through. A lot of extension in time came in, and that also came at a cost to us, because at some point you have to also want to possibly renegotiate the terms of your engagement, and which also comes at an increased cost. Also, part of the effects of the one of the realities that the pandemic or the COVID-19 dealt on the real estate space is now there is a higher regard. We have a higher level of compliance that we have to give to safety requirements, largely because from the regulatory standpoint, the Lagos State Health Commission is charged with enforcing some of these protocols on the COVID-19 guidelines and safety guidelines. I mean, they will definitely do fine, and then also do a lot of inspection. And if you're found wanting or found to contravene the guidelines, clearly you have that to answer to. And I mean, so on our own part as developers, the pandemic saw us adjusting clearly to, number one, how the number of people we engage on project sites, even up till date, because yes, we might say we're in the post-COVID era, but it still doesn't change the fact that the pandemic is still very much with us. Though vaccines and all of that are still coming into play, but it still behoves us to stick with the regulatory prescriptions on that. And what this also has, the implication this also has, again, is timeline, because ordinarily, if I'm able to have a pool of, say, 100 people on site at a goal initially, with the safety protocols and all of that, I'm possibly don't have more than a third of that at a material time. And that also has strain or puts a strain on my timeline, and also gives me the other implication of an increased cost in executing that project. Now, the most important one to me as a developer would also be my ability to meet up on this obligation that I already have with my clients. Everything runs on the thread of time, and if I have given timelines as to when some particular things are going to be done, it is expected that those things are going to be done, but for the pandemic. Now, the ability to balance this expectation with the reality is also one of the blows that the pandemic has dealt on us. Now, flow from this entire scope, practically speaking, we've had a series of claims that have resulted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the first on the list of that is issues of delay, right? Nobody saw the pandemic coming. Did we make provisions for this in the contracts? Yes, clearly we did make provisions for them in the contract, because just as we know, and as it was declared by the World Health Organization, you would agree, everybody agreed, that the pandemic was an unforeseen circumstance that would qualify as an act of God under the force majeure provision. So clearly, we made provisions for that under the various contracts that we had with various subscribers. The force majeure thing cuts on both sides, both also on the part of my own contractors who are also engaged for this purpose. I see also a lot of them coming back to me to say, hey, I'm not able to deliver on this because of this on the one hand. And some come to say, oh, okay, I can still strain myself to get this done, even amidst the entire insecurity or the health hazards related to it. However, it's going to come to you at a bit of an increased cost, marginal or geometric, but irrespective, it's going to be an additional cost to you. And also for me, because I also have expectations that might not be met as a developer, the chances that I renege, in short, as a matter of fact, I renege on some of the contracts that I've earlier gotten into with people, because looking at the timeline and looking at the uncertainty of the situation, I had to back out on some contracts, particularly the ones that had not been fully executed at the time. Also, another possibility of claims, which I would like that demand from LSDPC or demand from LABSCA would also touch on, is that a potential claim is penalties that arise from the state government, because we need to be very, very plain about this. The fact that the pandemic has occurred does not stop the running of the government in court. Because, say for instance, I have a period of 3 months to comply with, say, maybe the application for a permit, for instance, and the pandemic happened. Now, is the government giving a window to me that, okay, during the period of this pandemic, I am not going to let this penalty count against you? Because the practical example is that I did incur some bit of penalties for something that I was supposed to have done, but for the delay caused by the pandemic, I couldn't achieve it. Yet I still got a penalty for it. So that's a point that I think we need to possibly also focus on, to see how regulatory agencies have also possibly adjusted or are trying to adjust when it comes to compliance issues in vis-a-vis penalties. So, like I said, also potential claims again additional costs, losses and expenses. I mean, that are due to the pandemic. If it takes me initially maybe X naira to do a thing, but because I have to use lower manpower, and then it's elongates the period on which I have to do that, and that's automatically increases the cost that I incur in that regard. Also, I mean, part of the trend that I saw over the pandemic in relation to contracts were situations where particular people will request that you take up some costs or give them some bit of financial relief. I mean, you see clients who have ordinarily subscribed to your product coming back to say, oh, sorry, I don't actually want to renege on this contract, but with the situation of things, I have to. I think some will want to enter into a negotiation with you and say, hey, this is the amount of this. Can you reimburse me, or can you just give me back half of the amount that I paid and give me some time for me to balance out, and then we can start this all over again from that point. So a lot of I got a lot of that. People also requested that, oh, okay, just help us as times are hard. A lot of extension in payment period, and I mean, just some bit of those all around. And so how did we some practical steps that were taken to see how we could resolve or come to a midpoint on some of these these claims and possible claims. The first thing that I always do is to assess, or I did, was to assess majorly the rights and obligations under the various contracts, be it with my contractors or my clients. And for the bit that I do not have a contractual power in, which you have majorly maybe statutory or regulatory, there are ways by which we also did that. Majorly is to manage the regulators. So a lot of times, I mean, a saving grace for me majorly, or for us as Landry, was to invoke the force majeure clause across all contracts, even inclusive of the ones for my client. But it was also very, very key that early communication and part of the ways by which we resolved some of these potential claims, or these claims that arose out of the COVID-19 pandemic, was first analyzing the rights of parties, I mean, under the respective contracts, and thereafter went ahead for those that we know that you have to manage, you have to negotiate. We went that route. For those that we know clearly you couldn't deliver or find a headway, we had to invoke the force majeure clause. But I also mentioned that clearly what's as part of the requirements for that for invoking that clause is the need of early notification or communication of the prevailing circumstance, which was clearly going to prevent us from meeting our obligations to the respective parties in that regard. Also, as an aftermath of that, post-COVID, we saw a lot of requests to renegotiate contract terms, and just a very, very isolated situation of maybe 2 cases. We had to do a novation contract with two of our subcontractors, where you had to substitute the obligations that of a third party, and then they had to iron out how the settlement on payment was going to be as between them, while they still performed my obligation, because they didn't want to lose my clientele. And that's why we had to go the route of that novation contract with them in that instance. Also, a practical way of also resolving some of these potential claims that are likely to arise or that might have arisen as a result of the COVID-19 is through insurance policies that are bound, or that you're supposed to have as a developer. So, for instance, for me, for Landway, during the COVID-19, as a result of CAR policy for contractors, I mean, we could easily claim for some downtime under the insurance policy that we had, and that was also suitable for us to meet some other obligations towards some of our contractors in that regard. And also, clearly, since it's a free economy, termination of contract is always also on the table when parties feel that, oh, there is nothing we can do anymore with respect to these obligations. You can exit the transaction on both ends. I saw some bit of that also with respect to clients who said, hey, because of all of this, I don't think I'm able to continue with this obligation, but can I have a way out? And we discuss the terms, although termination or cancellation with implication, of course. So for the regulators on their beat, it is just to manage relationship or liaison with regulators, because it's very difficult for me to say, because I got a penalty as a result of a pandemic, then I take a regulator to court. No, I'll liaise with them, I'll manage them, and to a very large extent, you might be able to reach some midpoints with the regulators on some of the obligations that you ought to have performed, but for which you have been barred as a result of the pandemic. So clearly, and for in extreme circumstances where clearly there is no way out again, I mean, we resort to alternative dispute resolution, I mean, or litigation in the most extreme circumstance. But clearly, we don't even advise, or rather sit, mediate, negotiate, or go the route of arbitration if I have to resolve any dispute, because yeah, I mean, it's all about business, and it has to keep going. So I prefer to do all that, but litigation. However, litigation should be totally neglected. But if we have a better judicial system that can easily address, particularly issues that relate to real estate. I think it's going to be a good way forward as a way of a reform suggestion. So, and that's why I have on the next slide to see, is there a need for a separate court to handle real estate contract related matters in Lagos State? I think that's something we should ponder on, particularly because this industry, the real estate industry, is the oil for this state. The quicker matters or issues related to real estate are resolved, I think the more progressive, number one, the industry is going to be, the more progressive the state is going to be too, as a whole. So clearly that will be all of it from me. I'm hoping to receive questions or suggestions as regards to this presentation, for if there is any.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
I know because this is your turf, it's something that comes very easy to you, and we thank you for sharing your experience with us, and actually very thought-provoking question that you have submitted at the end of your presentation. Very quickly, in order to save time, I can see a certain Mr. Ben Onwara's hand has been up for quite a while. May I ask that we please use the question and answer feature? You know, just type it in the question and answer chat box so that we don't, so you don't forget your question, because the questions will be taken at the end of all the presentations that we have for today, so we do not have any disjointed presentations. No, if we can please have Mr. Alusodo's presentation, please. He's ready to take his presentation.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, I have to resort to Pepis to be sure that we have a clear. Okay, can you please share my screen? I will quickly just thank Shijibomi for his presentation. And let me quickly point out also that just like Landway, LSCPC is also, we're also players, we also play in the industry just like you. We are also developers, we're a development company. So we're not a regulator, so to speak. So questions that have to do with regulation will either go to Mr. Oki, the LAPSCA GM. I'm sure he is the regulator. So we are also subject to his regulation from him. So we, just like you, face the same issues that you're facing. Just that people see us as government, but we are fully a commercialized entity. We, like I say, we are business servants. I put it that way, if you allow me to, permit my language. But we do business on behalf of the state. If you can share my slides, I'll just quickly touch on a few things. Basically, the issues that have to do with housing, which I'm sure a lot of us here will not be strangers to. Where we know that the government is trying to do a lot in the area of housing, but housing per se has been more of, has been bedeviled by more of the macroeconomic policies that drive the economy itself, and which has had serious effects on the sector. I want to say that for the housing sector, there has been so much talk and so much talk from the part of the government, especially at the center, but not so much has been achieved. But so I know that the government has been trying to do quite a few things to ensure that they boost the housing sector, because of the huge impact that the housing sector has on the employment, creation of employment. How do I call it now? The effect that it has is enormous. It has, you know, there's a value chain that employs so many people, that provides opportunity for so many youths to be employed. We have the figure that has been bandied around that we have over 23 million or close to 30 million unemployed youths in the country. And we have a sector that can actually employ a majority of these youths in the different areas, different sectors, you know, that we are not, you know, laying so much emphasis on. Thank God for agriculture, but I believe that if the housing sector is given its pride of place, and employment would, will be resolved in the nation. Speak quickly. I think CGBOMI has laid a good foundation, so I'm just going to speak on the impacts of COVID on what we do as LSTPC, I believe that I was trying to lay a foundation that at the federal level, a number of policies, have been put in place to encourage home ownership, and the National Housing Fund, for instance, the Family Home Fund. I believe the Family Home Fund, federal government says they want to do 300,000 units of houses, and the Family Home Fund is a vehicle that is being used to drive that in the 36 states of the federation. I have an issue with that, but well, that is my own opinion, because I know that the housing deficit is not equal in all the states. So when we begin to politicize that we want to do 300 in all the states, are we going to share it equally? Is it the same issues that we have in certain places that we have in places like Lagos? In Lagos, for instance, I know that we have over 2.1 million. I'm using research data from Piston housing, that we have over 2.1 million households without formal housing, and I'm sure that's just a very conservative figure. So if you say you want to do 300,000 and you're sharing in, how many units are we going to give to Lagos? But anyway, that's by the way. We also have other agencies like the Nigerian Mortgage Finance Corporation, NMRC. We have the Federal Mortgage Bank also coming up. And these are different agencies that the federal government is trying to use to encourage financing of housing. I know that Federal Mortgage Bank is doing a lot now. There are a lot of innovations they are bringing on board. I had some discussions with them sometime late last year, and they're trying to do a lot in to fund housing development, also to make funds available to developers to fund. So they are not only just looking at housing from the standpoint of providing long-term mortgage finance to off-takers, to buyers of houses, but they're also looking at the supply end, how they can also increase the supply end. So a lot of developers are also now approaching them to seek developers fund. I know they did that in the past, though they had some issues, but I think they have more or less repackaged it and they want to do it better. And you can actually seek development fund from Federal Mortgage Bank. And also, they're also giving that to cooperatives. There's also cooperative loans for cooperatives that they can come together and also be able to access funding to build. Like I said, I've talked about the Family Home Fund. Then we also know that the NMRC themselves also seek funding from the capital market to be able to fund long-term mortgage for off-takers. Those are some of the things that have been done, though there's still a lot to do. We have so much that we need to do. The deficit is huge. It has been said that we have about 17 million housing deficit in the country. And I believe that we have not even scratched, we haven't started the work to be able to, bring this down. So a lot needs to be done. While the frameworks are laudable, like I said, a lot needs to be done to access housing. The construction industry deserves to have a special funds, which has been done for the entertainment industry, for instance, textile, agriculture industry. They've enjoyed such. But I think the construction industry, housing itself, needs to be given, special attention. There has to be a special funds. There'll be single digits. For instance, people like us, Landway, there was a time LSDBC, we were borrowing we had borrowed, I remember that in the early 2000s, we had borrowed at 35% in this country before to build houses. And we ran into some serious issues because we were using short-term funding, were very expensive to build affordable housing. We're trying to do affordable housing then, in the early 2000s, and we're borrowing at 30%, 35%, 36%. And then, of course, there's no way you can do affordable housing with such funds. We ran into serious trouble, and eventually we were able to get ourselves out. So that actually led us to begin to redefine ourselves and repackage ourselves as LSDPC. My next slide, at the state level, there are different MDAs that are involved in housing. We are one of them. We have LBIC, which is Lagos Building Investment Company. we have the Lagos Mortgage Board, which provides mortgage for affordable housing. And then we have the Newtown Development Agency, amongst other agencies that are involved. And the Land Use Act, empowers the state government to provide land for mass housing. And since 1972, where LSDPC has been involved in delivering of mass housing, we've done a lot, especially when it comes to the low-cost housing end. The Jack Conde houses come to mind, and everybody knows those houses. We've, of course, handed them over to LBIC because they provided the mortgages for some of those ones. And then we moved on to the medium and upper income echelon of the market. And so because we are fully commercialized, since 1999, we have been fully commercialized. We do not receive any subvention from the government. So people think that we're totally self-funding. What we basically do is that we do mostly middle income and high network, the higher income market. That's where we play now. And then we provide support for the Ministry of Housing when it comes to doing affordable housing. For instance, the Lagos home schemes that the former administration of Governor Fashola SAN did, we were the main technical partners that provided the construction support for all the developments that were done. And most of those that were delivered were the ones that LSCPC actually handled them. So we will say that we have houses cut across the state, and because of issues of funding, like I said in the past, we had to borrow directly from the banks to fund. We decided to adopt the PPP model, which we felt that would afford us the opportunity of partnering with the private sector and also allow private developers to also leverage the brand LSDPC. We have a brand that we believe that affords us to be able to do so much. So our brand is available. So we have, as we speak now, close to 20 projects running in different parts of the state, which are private sector-driven projects. They are projects we're doing with developers in different locations of the state. And what it means is that we provide the land, the private developers bring in the funding, and then we partner to do development. And that has also dovetailed into other people who have landowners bringing land to us now to say, yeah, LSCPC, yes, we know you have credible partners. We don't mind joining, helping us. We'd like you to help us to structure the development of our own assets. This is one of our estates. I'll just quickly run across some of the estates we've done. This was commissioned last year. We have that in Lekki. This is another one also commissioned last year. These two were commissioned last year. They're private developments we did with private developers. This particular one was done and a cooperative, one of the cooperative, the Shell cooperative actually did the offtake of more than 80% of the development. So they actually funded that development by and large. We have this in Bayview Estate in Elegushi that will be commissioned in a matter of months. Hopefully before the next calendar of the administration will commission that. This is in Victoria Island. This is Iconic Towers, one of our biggest projects, one of our iconic projects in Victoria Island. In VI, we have about 4 different projects running now. Now, let me quickly speak to that. What we have done in VI is urban regeneration, which is what Lagos needs actually, because land is a major issue, and we realize that we have Sanfilling and we are Sanfilling, but we can't Sanfill the whole field of Lagos. So we started looking at urban regeneration, and that's one area we're going to be playing, LSDPC, we're going to be playing big. So we looked at all the bungalows we have in Victoria Land, and we started redeveloping them, and that's some of those projects we see in VI, the Iconic Towers, is we demolished quite a number of bungalows and started going vertical. This is also, we demolished a few bungalows here, and this is in Lupeju, close to our office. We have a land there that we're developing a big estate there in Lupeju. This is in Ikoyi. We also, one of our bungalows in Ikoyi, and this is what we have on Cooper Road. And so we have quite a number of such projects going on. Of course, I won't have time to bring all of them on board. Now, let me just quickly touch on the impacts. And like I said, you have touched on it, Chijibomi. You've talked on I would say that COVID was something that is unprecedented. Nobody saw it coming, but we don't have a choice. We all have to cope with it. It affected our projects. Practically now, looking at it from the practical point of view, it affected the projects that were running. Of course, we had manpower loss resulting from infections and all that. In actual fact, we lost two of our partners, two of our PPP partners, and of course, one of those projects, in fact, the two projects are just about to come back on stream since the death of those principals. The sites were shut down. And so thank God for clauses that, okay, we had what is called the stepping right clause in our agreement that allows us to step in to finish the project where such happens. Thank God for that. And let me confess that we actually learned that from one of our partners. It was in the course of this PPP, we learned that from one of our partners who brought it up, and we included it, inserted it in our agreements, and it has helped us to be able to say, look, young guys, if you can't finish this project, we'll take it over. We'll finish it, and then we would, give you what is due to you. So that's part of it. Has slowed us down because we had to give, whether we like it or not, we had to first give them some time to gather themselves together. So there was an extension of time, and of course, it affected the delivery of the houses. It also led to, like he also mentioned, force majeures, which were also part of the clauses. But I mean, it affects all the parties, all of us. Then, of course, that it has implications of those who are paid, on the off-takers, on the buyers who are paid. Because, I mean, some are paid in anticipation that the houses will be ready and they'll be moving out of their rented apartments and all that. Now they have to, I mean, they are stuck there. They have to probably renew their rent, or the homeowners have probably committed the property to someone else or to something else. They have to now start looking for. So those issues are issues that have come up that were not, we didn't plan for. And so, of course, the issue of construction cost escalation, that has been a major issue for all developers. Major issue. I don't know how that's going to be handled, because costs have gone up. I mean, and you cannot, the buyers, I mean, income has also reduced, so the purchasing capacity is not there. So you can't even just offload the increase in cost straight to the buyer to say, sorry, it's no longer 40 million, it's now 50 million or 60 million. The man will look at you. How do you expect me to get that? So that is a major issue we're contending with. Cement, I mean, for me, I don't know how to explain iron rod. I don't know how to explain the changes in prices. POP, oh, that's another one that is, I don't understand. So those are issues we're contending with, and I know it's not us alone, it's general, but our partners are crying, and we have to look at that and see how we can accommodate some of these things, even in our sharing arrangement that we have with them, to say, okay, we know this has gone up, let's see how we can accommodate some of it, take some of it off you. Loss of revenue, I mean, that's also key for some of the commercial developments that we have. That is there. Then, of course, we've had complete shutdown of the sites, I mean, which also talks about the issue of time. Timing has been difficult. We have reduction in even the number of people who can work on site during the COVID period. Those were issues that had to do with safety issues, of course, regulatory issues and all that. Disruption of the material supply chain, very, very critical. Not only COVID, the Third Mainland Bridge that was shut also had serious implications and serious issues for some of the developments that were done. And of course, the slow recovery of activities. Things are not totally back to normal. We're still trying to, crawl back to get things back to normal. So these are some of the practical effects that we have had. Some sites are just trying to, we're just trying to get back to some of those sites, and they're not there. To get ready mixed concrete has not been easy, as since the COVID thing. So it's been, you have to schedule and plan and replan. We want to cast. We are not going to. Okay, so the pandemic has presented opportunities to address some of the pitfalls, that we have faced. And one of, the things that we need to do is we need to improve the building technology. We need to improve the way we build houses in this part of the world. This brick and mortar thing we're doing, I think it's high time we begin to look at, let's optimize our development. Let's look at how we adopt building technologies that will allow us to build faster, and that we're building, and also build lighter, because right now we're still building using blocks to do internal partitions. So we shouldn't be doing that anymore. I mean, we see how it's done in other places. By now we should be, so dry construction and all that. We should begin to look at all this. These are things we're looking at in-house, and those are areas that I'm, paying serious attention to. So we need to deploy, artificial intelligence for routine tasks. Some of these things that we do, technology will help us to do a lot. Though I know that one of the things, I remember I brought it up in the past, and one of the things I was told was that if you put technology in, you're going to render a lot of our people, redundant. And so we have the population. Why don't we use them rather than learn? But I believe that technology will make us work smarter, even with the population that we have. So we need to do that. Furthermore, we can see the way, the speed with which this vaccine thing was done. And it tells us that with technology, a lot can be done. So our PPP, our partners, have also, as LSCPC, we've learned a lot from our partners, and we've leveraged a lot of things they're doing as government, and that has helped us to also change, and to, restructure some of the things we do. So it's been good for us. It's improved our experience and our efficiency, and we know that, our results are much better. In actual fact, our deliverables are better, our quality is better, our standards are better. So I believe that's all for now. Because of time, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to share with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. We're very grateful for sharing with us. Time is galloping, I would say. So I'll quickly call on our next speaker. I know the first two speakers have clamored for the regulator. The Lagos State man has said, no, I'm a player in the field as well, so call the regulator. And so now we'll call on the regulator in the person of Architect Bola Onuki. He's the general manager of the Lagos State Building Control Agency. Yes, we're very grateful for joining us, sir. So he will just speak generally about his role in regulating the construction environment, his challenges, his practical realities, and how he's tried to manage all these, concerns from you players in the fields. So, sir, we're with you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm happy I'm seeing my Ogas online. I can see Mr. Diola. And I love it when he was saying something about the issue of we need to change our construction type. There are lots of cheaper, stronger, better form of construction. It doesn't have to be the normal block day in and day out that we do. But well, I'm not here to talk about the materials and the effects of it. I'm here to be the checkmate. The building control office is just the checkmate office. We are not the ones that are doing the building, as we all know. We are just to checkmate the construction to make sure that the things that the professionals are putting on ground are the actual thing that has been approved or that was approved to them. But with that, I want you to understand that when you are talking about construction, you have the three categories: the professional, the semi-professional, and the illiterate. The semi and the illiterate can fall in either ways. You have the developers that goes about, for them to get the planning plan approval is hell of headache to them. And they believe in doing it the other way. And the other way they are doing it costs them more than going through the normal channel. And the GM planning permit, as such, we've done it in such a way that things are a lot easier in relation to getting approval with government. But some people say that it's still very difficult, but the bottom line is that there's a difference between doing the thing yourself and sending somebody to go and do it. And there's something that the public should know. When you're asking somebody to go and run an approval for you, you are creating a third party. The cost on its own is going into the building. Because what you are just supposed to go to the planning office, seek for the information, they give it to you, submit your building plan for approval. You are now looking for somebody to be an intermediary between you and the government. That is one aspect of what is causing major problem. But the fiscal planning, the GM planning permit took it upon himself in the last couple of, probably let me just say a year, they've tried to rearrange the planning permit process. And while doing that, that is when they come up, there are a lot of questions that about the tax, the delay, the then governor of Lagos State, Mr. Fashola, brought about the issue of if you want to do any approval, you must have the certificate, the governor consent or certificate of occupancy before approval can be granted. that causes more than enough problem in the construction industry, because before you have to go and do, before now, all you do is once you pay, your money give you your payment, the receipt for the payment of the land, you go and do the normal stamp duty, you bring the whole thing in. But we found out that you see the Omonile selling the land for 3-4 people, and at the end of the day, there's always this fight when it comes to who owns the property. That was when the issue of you must have the governor consent or CFO before you can come in. Then what is the role of building control officer? We are just to checkmate, to make sure that the approved drawing that was given to you, you are building to specification. And at the same time, while building to specification, we know that normally when you are doing something, there's always changes that maybe you probably want to change from 3-bedroom to have additional extra room, or you want to have double parlor, double sitting room instead of the one that you have. But what you are talking about is when you have the checkmate officer coming in, it's like a form of an instruction that is given that a normal engineer on site do give on site. That you want to change this, you must notify the builder. So once you are doing that, they are there, you notify them in writing that you want to do this. You want to change the floor, you want to change the pattern. Once you send it to building control office, we look at it and we ask you to go and do what we call as build drawing. So because they know that you are doing the changes, it gives you, you don't need to go through unnecessary, because you wrote a letter to them. And that's what we're saying. We all travel abroad. You don't just go to site because you have been given an approval, you move to site. What building control is saying is, once you have your planning permit, write a letter to building control office that you want to start your construction. And once you start, you give them the listing, the officer will come, number one, to check the setback that you are having. Fine, the English world, everything is together because the climate condition is different from ours. We decided that we need to have 3 meters setback from each of those buildings. The setback is one of the things that they are going to look at. What is the setback? Are you conforming to what approval that you have been given? Then once that is done, if you are going up, you want to do the casting, they want to be sure. The major problem we are having is the strength of materials. The rate that people compromise with the mixture of the materials that are used in construction. So they are like, the building control is the public friend. They are like checkmating the professionals that you have on site, like your second eye, that what is the problem? If there's anything, they let you know that this is the problem. And in doing this, it reduces the issue of collapse that we have. So that is why we said that on every mean and main casting that you are going to do, such as you want to do the foundation, you need to write us that you want to cast your foundation. You will be there. Apart from the fact that you are going to do the cube test that is normal that you are doing, they are going to be there. They want to check the iron. That's why we call them the checkmating officer. If you are going up for every pillar point, the casting, every floor, that is why they need to be on ground. And there are cases of whereby people say they've submitted their approval, drawing for approval, but unfortunately, because of tax and some other thing, they are finding it difficult to get the approval and they want to move to site. We all understand it. Nigeria is a very peculiar case that you want to move to site as soon as possible. And that is where we have the architects, the engineers, all the professionals in all the district office. Their duty is to clear each of those drawings. If those drawings are not cleared, there is no way they are going to give you an assessment. That is part of the thing that the Lagos State government put in place to ease the approval process. Because before now, what you just did, you just see some of the architects, they say they submitted the drawing to the planning office. But submitting to the planning office, the architect, the professionals, they found out that there are a lot of errors in the drawing. So because of that, they won't come back. And the thing they will be saying is that, is in the planning office. So we look at it and say, well, the best thing that we need to do is, let's check the drawing. Let's have professionals in each of the districts that will check and clear each of the professional drawings that comes in. So once the drawing is cleared and that is okay, that is when an assessment will be given to you. And once an assessment is given to you, if you paid in the money, in less than a month or two, your planning permit is with you, depending on whether you have the basics, that is the tax, which is another thing that you have to go through. But once that is done, because we have some people that they want to do the construction, we are looking at the weather. Some wants to start the construction before the main time. So when they come down and they write to building control, I sign on the drawing and instruct the supervising director and probably give them a couple of months or two. That between this 1 month or 2 months, your approval, you must have your approval at hand. And definitely, in most cases, once the drawing has been cleared and you pay, if there is no issue of, yes, the person doing tax, the approval, you get your approval in less than a couple of, let's just say, months, putting all odds into consideration. But we are to stop the issue of collapse and make sure that the construction that they do is in line with the approval given. And if you are going to change the approval given, there must be a design that you are going to represent to the planning authority and present this as built. And take note, most of these things that you see, you find out that people build and you see building control going there to mark. There is this master plan that signifies what an environment should be. Right now, we are carrying out a survey going on in most of this area, Lekki and other areas, which is, you find out that all the places that are supposed to be residential has been turned to commercial within some, even the scheme area. And the thing that they say is that because of the activities, that is why they decide to turn it, and which is not. A commercial area is a commercial area, a residential area is a residential area. And we have gone ahead that we need to serve them. Let's have what you have. Issue of condoning, it's not everything that we have to condone. When you condone a particular building, whether residential to commercial, the next thing you see is somebody say, yes, yeah, you did it for Mr. A. So he now wants to put a beer parlor next to a residential building. And we have a lot of complaints that comes to building control. The issue of greenies, where you are supposed to have parks, people have converted, people have gone ahead to put a lot of buildings on it. So the building control, like I said, we are checkmating. And what I can't speak too much of regulation, because the thing that my office does is checkmating the basics when it comes to construction. But when there are questions that need an answer in relation to, because I'm talking to professionals, everything that I need to say is what they know. But there are some silence aspects of it, which most people do not take cognizance of. But when the situation arises, that is when you now see the officer coming in and people feel that, oh, building control, they are taking law into their hands. Okay, let me just tell you, last week, we went to Idimu, Idimu, heavy power line, and they've been warned. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago that I was the director at QC. We went to the same spot, we removed all the buildings under high tension. I was shocked when I got there about a week or two ago. They've started putting up massive structure. We got there. We told them that this thing has to go. They marked them. But you see people saying that no, because they've paid, putting up all sorts of action that lets them, it makes Lagos look as if they are just being wicked. This thing has been mentioned to them. They know about it. Notices have been served. They've warned them, but they always turn the deaf ear that nothing will happen. And there's this saying that, government will give you, will tell you, there is one day that they will come, and that one day is always the day that the noise will come out. That is just all that we just need to understand that there are designated areas. When you are talking of high tension, there is a particular meters. There are distance that you need to keep. The right of way, you look at Lekki, all the right of way, you see people extending. And when it now comes to the government want to expand, that's when you see somebody saying that I've been there for 15 years or 20 years. And they always look for the other way to look at how can they get paper for it. But I'll tell you that the planning permit authority deem it very free that irrespective of the situation, once a place has been designated for a particular use, there's no change of use because change of use has been stopped before now. So you can't say because a particular environment is lacking primary school, you want to turn the residential area to primary school. And that is why you look at people just converting, you see a lot of eateries. And one thing that people should understand, building control is all inclusive. Once there is a problem, you imagine having eateries, 3-4 eateries on the road, then it's going to affect the traffic. Apart from the traffic, security is going to be involved. You look at some places, residential area, you have nightclubs there. The people within the environment find it very difficult to sleep. And when you are looking at, when you are going home after a hard day work, you now have to go home. The next thing you see, you see a lot of cars parked where the place is supposed to be as empty as dead zone. You see car parks there, you now start hearing noise, you want to go into your house, that's when you'll be looking for the owner of the car to move in. But when building control happens to come during the day and say they want to take the place up, the next thing you see that, no, they've collected money, they've done this, they've done that. But it is when the action is about to be taken, that is when you start seeing all different type of letters. Please, it's not affecting us, is this. But all these things have so much to do with the environment. That's why I said when you're talking about building control, it's all inclusive. You're talking about security, you are talking about transportation, you are talking about health. Just imagine somebody wants to move out of his house and there is an emergency. And the next thing you open your gate, the whole of your gate is filled with cars because there is a nightclub beside you. And that is what we are talking about. There is no need for change of use. Do the approval, do your construction according to what you got approval for. And if you think that there is need for you to add and drop, it's just a matter of writing a letter. This is my thought, or this is what I'm thinking. After I've been given an approval for 3-bedroom, and I think I want to have this. The relevant authority, the regulating body will look at it if it's what they can condone in relation to the planning, the approval limit. If it's not, they ask you that you stop it. And that is why it is very important for anybody building to write to building control that I want to start my construction. I've been given an approval and we come in. So why doing that? There won't be any mistake. There won't be an assumption because the officers know exactly what the situation in that environment is. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Architect. I particularly like the fact that you just spoke directly about your experience. It wasn't a theoretical paper. You were just giving the hard points, and we're very, very grateful for sharing your experience with us as regulator. So our poll question is: do you think that digitalization will speed land title registration in Lagos? Do you think that digitalization will speed land title registration in Lagos? I mean, it's tied to what a few of the speakers have mentioned, deploying technology, what the former governor of Lagos State brought in, that you must have registered title before you can apply for building plan permits as an extra process. Just wait maybe 10 more seconds, see if more people will vote. Okay, and the results are out. 96% of us think that yes, it will certainly speed up land title registration, whereas 4% of us think, 4% I beg your pardon, thinks that no, it would not speed up the process. So without further ado, we call on the last but by no means the least speaker, person of Chief Anthony Idigbe, SAN, the senior partner at PUNUKA Attorneys and Solicitors. He is no novice to the construction field, having advised several clients, and we would now ask that he please delivers his own presentation, drawing on what several of the speakers have already touched on. Chief Idigbesa, we're ready for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mobo. And I just want to thank all my fellow presenters for such insightful and insightful presentations from very practical experience that they have. First of all, really quite impressed with the depth of experience and knowledge that our panelists today have exhibited. Showing that they are actually on the ground and they are heavily involved with the construction industry, particularly with the challenges and the issues. So in terms of my contribution today, I will take a much broader approach, and I would do maybe more of comparative discussion, looking at what other countries are doing, and then trying to ensure that and then looking at how we can improve our own system to perform maybe a little bit better, and then where we are doing well to talk about what we are doing right. Construction law in Nigeria, I would do an introduction, then I would look at the land title and regulatory issues, some of which have been discussed. I will look at construction law framework. I will look at the delivery model, the bidding and tendering. I will look at issues of lien and claims. I'll look at risk management in construction and infrastructure projects. And then I'll look at some of the funding issues, some of which have been mentioned. And I'll look at dispute resolution more specifically. And again, it has been mentioned by the panelists. Then I will talk about COVID-19. Although most of what I could have said on COVID-19 have already been said. But I will emphasize more on the future. What should the future be like? And there have been snippets of that from the contribution that have been made, and then I would arrive at my conclusion. So in terms of introduction, I think one thing we need to know is that every project is different, but for almost every project in Nigeria, there's always land, title, or community issues. But the job of the project developer or the owner is to put a design together and then to deliver that design, that project. And this can be very challenging because there are many parties that are required in order to be able to deliver a project. This would include both the client himself, the client's ability to finance, the designers of the project, the contractors, the subcontractors, the regulators, and all those people that they have to meet. And at times there may be information asymmetry, not just on the project and the costing of the project, but even the conditions of the site. For instance, is there an environmental problem with the site, that nobody anticipated, and you're on site and you meet it? Procurement and delivery challenges can become very complex. You are trying to get a contractor, the bid process, there's a problem, there's litigation. And as Siju said, that he tries to avoid any dispute that will go to even ADR, not to talk of go to court, So, of course, you then have the COVID-19 impact, and we've been told what the consequences have been in terms of delay, cost, etc. Then there's the issue of technology, which everybody has spoken about, that technology is moving, and this is creating challenges. And there's governance issue as to the discipline of even the people executing the project. allusion has been made by Mr. Okay, that at times people just take the wrong decisions. What they should do themselves, they give to third parties. Those are governance challenges. Then of course you have the issue of the fact that the way a private project is done is different from the way a public project is done, and then even the public projects are trying to use private initiatives, as you can see, LSDPC, and then at times they are doing PPPs and all sorts of different methods. The summary is that there's uncertainty everywhere when it comes to construction. Construction is about managing uncertainties, essentially. So that's what construction is about, managing uncertainties. And let's take the land title regulation and social license issues. We have different title systems in Nigeria. For instance, in Lagos State, you have the land instrument registration law. That only requires you come and register and stamp and register your document. It doesn't look at the title that you have. You have even the land use act and this CFO. CFO really doesn't really look at your title, particularly for deemed grants. The only law in Lagos State that actually you cannot have two titles registered is the registration of titles law, because they will do cartography and you cannot have two people registered on the same land. And you would, if there's two people applying for first registration or second registration, they will take it to a tribunal in the High Court, and then that matter will be resolved before you enter into the register. But we have cases, which we see of two people having CFO on the same piece of land. So the most superior title system we have in Nigeria is the registration of titles law. And so the question is, why did we do the land use act where they just say, okay, government owns everything, the governor owns everything, but there's some money is everywhere. So there's clearly an issue whether you can deliver a valid site, even when you have CFO. So that issue still remains. Then there's the issue of community land, of the Omonile, and the land title. And that for really big projects, you have compensation issues, social license. You can see. So that's why a lot of times, whether you got the land from the state, whether you got the ability to go to the land because you have an oil license, for instance, on the federal government, you will still face these issues, and you have to get a social license. So you have to do some other things like MOU with the community and the rest. So land is an important element for construction or infrastructure. So lack of title guarantee affects project viability and causes delay. Then, of course, if you add the issue of building approval, regulatory permits, and the rest, and the tag-alongs with that, like all the tax issue and, etc. At times, there are some of the approvals that we do where, they've really basically almost approved everything, and then they ask for one old receipt from somewhere. Everybody starts looking for the receipt. Say, but you are supposed to have the receipt. You issue the receipt. They say, we don't have it. Go and bring your own. And that can take a couple of months from your transaction. So there are clearly issues. However, talking about the framework for construction in Nigeria is essentially contractual. So it's you, the project owner, to select your delivery mode, and you can do it by an ad hoc method, or you can use standard processes or standard forms. There's really no uniform construction statute in Nigeria. In many countries, they have a construction statute, right? But then in Nigeria, you have the urban and regional planning laws, which has been said is vested in the states. Although the federal government has its own urban and planning law, but the case from the Supreme Court, which Lagos State inspired, has made it clear that it's something for the state to regulate. So, and if you look at other countries, take the US, take Canada, actually it's the but for instance, in Canada, it's the provinces that regulate construction, and they pass their construction act, their different construction act. So I don't see anything wrong with Lagos State, for instance, passing a construction act, and having a construction act will solve a lot of other problems that I may mention and refer to. So of course you then have some special laws, like say the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act, you have the Environmental Protection Act. These things all affect construction. Then the procurement process. How do you select who those parties will be, those who will deliver the project? You may have a private procurement process. If you are a private person, you decide, oh, I know the contractor, I just give him the job, right? Or you may decide, no, there will be a bid process. Everybody will come and bid. I'll get a quantity surveyor to do an on price bill, and then I'll administer to people. So that will be your own private process. But if you are, it used to be like that even with government, but now the government has passed the Public Procurement Act, and you must follow the standard procurement procedure in order to do the government procurement. So then you have usually if there was a construction law, it would have some provisions like an adjudication system, and all, and it will manage certain other risks, and there will be a clear dispute resolution process. So, but because we don't have a construction act, people decide how they want to resolve their dispute. So you have different types of provisions. Then there's the issue of, okay, what are the people, all those small contractors, subcontractors who supply cement, supply iron, supply toiletries to the project. If the project should go bust, where is their security? Where will they get their money from? Will the bank if the bank gave a loan, will the bank, can they go into the building and take, if their toiletry has not been installed, can they go in there and take it out? So you manage those issues through statutory lien, and there's no specific law in Nigeria establishing statutory lien. So if the person is not smart or doesn't have the advice to have a retention of title agreements and things like that, the person may not be secured in an insolvency situation. So in terms of the delivery mode, I will try not to spend a lot of time on it, but you may decide you want to either design the project first, then you call people to come and bid, then you select who is going to build it. You may decide one person should design and build. You may do construction management where you have different people playing different roles, particularly for engineering contracts. But those are the three standard ways. But now you then have alternatives such as PPP for government contracts, where government doesn't want to use treasury money, And then you have new concepts such as the alliance concept, where you have all the contractors and the subcontractors as one group. And between them, they sign this agreement between them where they don't accept nobody is responsible, nobody is liable amongst them. So they have how they do it, and then they create a pool. And at times it's more efficient for really big projects like airport projects and things like that. So the bidding process, if I talk more about the bidding process, first there's the fact that you have a bid process, and then the issue from the contractual point of view, the implication of that bid process. People say when you invite somebody for a bid, it's not a contract, it's just an invitation to treat. That is only when you then give a contract that it will become a contract. Well, if you look at around the world, that position of is not exactly correct. The bid process is a contract in itself, in the sense that if you agree that this is, because you can go and negotiate with somebody one-on-one, but when you do a bid process, it's a competitive process, and there is all sorts of doctrines such as legitimate expectation, good faith, etc., to say that you can't start a bid process and the expectation is that at the end of the bid process, somebody is going to win that contract in line with the bid process and sign a bid agreement, like the agreement that is in the tender document, and then either the owner pulls out or the person who has won pulls out because he thinks the contract is no longer favorable to him, and there could be damages for that. So that is, they call it contract A. And then contract A means you must keep to the bid guidelines and the bid process you have agreed. Then contract B is the actual contract that will be signed at the end of the day, and the two of them should have implications in terms of damages if somebody tries to escape from it. Then of course you have the issue of liens. I don't want to repeat it. And then you have the issue of claims, and it's been said by the other speakers about people asking for change orders, extension of time, extra amendments to the project. Now, when you ask to move it from 2 rooms to 3 rooms, it has implication. The contractor is going to charge you more, and is going to ask for more time to be able to finish it up. So these are the main basis on most construction claims are based on these issues, either extras, change orders, delays, So those are very, very significant. And in running a construction contract, there are things you have to do: give notices, give reports, and the rest. If you don't do them when you are supposed to do them, you may have challenges with sustaining your claim. So as I've said, construction is all about, and infrastructure delivery is all about managing uncertainties. And some of the biggest uncertainties are the risk of payment. Now, will the owner pay you for the job? And will the second issue is performance. Will the contractor perform? Those are the two major risks. So you have different ways you manage it using different techniques. At times you have a bid bond, because you are worried if you are doing a competitive bid, if at the end of the bid, the person you choose decides is not going to sign the contract, and the next person is more expensive, so there's a difference in the money you are going to pay the next person, you want to recover that difference. So that's why they put the bid bond there, for instance. So you have shorty-ship bonds, you have insurance that have been mentioned. These are all the risk tools that you use to manage the risks in a construction contract. So, of course, it has also been said that most of these infrastructure projects are pretty long-term in nature, and so you have to look at, so how is it funded? How do you fund it? Usually, the typical way is to fund the, say, acquisition of the land, and then the initial design, and the preliminary marketing. You fund it through equity. In other words, the owners would make those initial investment, buy the land, do the marketing, design the project. Then when it comes to construction, they will go for short-term fund from the bank, which is usually very expensive, as has been said. But then that fund is taken out by, when they sell it on to other people, and those people are able to get long-term money like mortgages, and all those funds, like if there's any special fund of government, etc., then those long-term funds will take out the short-term fund, because they will pay back the contractor, and then the contractor will pay the bank, and then it will become a mortgage of 20 years. Now, the long-term funding, there's challenge, but as Diola has said, that there's effort with the Nigerian Refinance Corporation and the mortgage bank, and they are trying to create that sort of long-term funding in Nigeria. A lot of work needs to be done on that, but at times you can do it based on project finance, for instance, where the receivables from the project should be able to, but at times it's not easy. If you take the toll gate, for instance, the idea was that they would recover the money by tolling the gate, but that at times there's political risk. It was difficult to toll the whole gate. They couldn't toll as they planned, and eventually, you saw what happened. So you then again have to have a way to manage that risk within the contract, etc. So, but you can use bonds, you can use sovereign wealth fund, and things like that are being used now to do the long-term ones, like the second Niger bridge and things like that. Even the Lekki Link bridge that is here, they used a fund that was sort of like setting aside of a portion of the internally generated revenue of Lagos State and used it to fund this bridge that you are looking at. So there are different things that, different ways that you can create the funding, even with all the difficulties that we have in Nigeria. Of course, there will always be disputes, and then you have model contract clauses on how you want to do the disputes and the rest. But if you look at around the world, in Nigeria, we are still using the traditional go to arbitration or go to court to resolve construction dispute. But look, construction dispute is time bound. There's speed, and every day is money, right? So that's why in other countries, if you look at UK, you look at Canada, even America, they have what is called statutory adjudication, and it's so clear. They have clear timeline on it. You would see, like for instance, I spoke about notices when I was talking about the issues in contract. So they give you the notice of payment, that you need to pay so and so. You have a certain number of days under the law to dispute it, and then they have a certain number of days to respond, and after that it goes to the adjudicator. Now the adjudicator, the way it's done, the adjudicator does not hear evidence. In other words, it's not what you'll be calling weaknesses and the rest. You submit all the documents to the adjudicator. The adjudicator has, I think, 7 or 14 days to give a decision. That's it. It's done. Everybody knows there, and it's enforceable, So contractual timeline, use of expertise, this is critical so we can achieve the speed which is needed, to really make sure that is responding, decisions are made, payments will be made, and you have lots of workers on the side, they have to pay, and things like that. So you can't afford delay at all. You can't afford the court process. It's adjudication that is the solution. So we then go to the pandemic. A lot have been said about this, so I will just say that I agree with everything that has been said, and you can see that I have them here. But if there's the disruption which causes delay, and then there's the health and safety issue, that meant people have to start buying new equipment. There's the liability and risk allocation, and we've been told about the stepping rights and things like that. But one of the issues about the COVID also is that the government has an interest to reflate the economy, and construction and infrastructure is one of the ways to reflate the economy. By pumping money into construction, you can reflate the economy in the kind of pandemic situation that we have. It's also an ideal period for renovation works, particularly if you take hospitality industry. You have a big hotel with so many rooms, and now you want to renovate, but you're always having guests. But now you don't have guests. It's a good period to actually do some of those construction work. And when you talk about how to use the pandemic now as a way to reflate the economy, and to use construction as a way to reflate the economy in a pandemic, usually the government will be looking for what we refer to as shovel-ready projects, not all these complex projects. This is where the new technology comes in. When you talk about shovel-ready projects, you are talking about projects that, as I'll show soon, that you can build like the 300,000 houses in 3 months, all over the country. 1 million houses can be delivered, and that means you have to change. You have to look at new technology, and I will talk about those new technology now, and some of the things that you need to do. So in terms of the future, I would say that regulatory reform needs to be done on land and construction. I've said that although we are using Land Use Act, but Land Use Act doesn't give title guarantee per se. So we may need to look at how to give title guarantee and how to actually effect transfer, because the transfer process using consent and physical documents, physical deed of assignment, for instance, in Canada, they don't use physical. They don't use physical deed of assignment. The deed of assignment is in the office of the lawyer. The lawyers who are qualified to do a transfer do it by a statement which they make into the portal, that this title has changed from this person to the other person. And I say, how can they do that? There will be fraud. Well, today in Nigeria, if you look at the Secured Transaction Immovable Assets Law, Act, you can they've introduced the same thinking, the same reasoning, right, has been introduced in Nigeria, because you can register a security in a movable asset in Nigeria by simply making a financial, what they call a financing statement, into the National Collateral Registry, which is maintained at the Central Bank of Nigeria. So, and it's being done today. If you use your car or your aircraft or your ship to as security, they will register it that way using a financing statement issued by the bank that did it. The CBN doesn't collect the title documents and the rest. That remains the land for land. And if we do it, it will speed up the entire process. And then in terms of regulation, again, I think maybe the states need to understand that because the Supreme Court has decided that regulation of land is actually for them, they need to do a little bit more, be more aggressive in solving this problem. So for instance, in Lagos State, we have been told about urban renewal, right? Which is fantastic. But for you to really do urban renewal, you are not going to do it only based on LSDPC building 1 or 2 houses. The most important is that the private people are building houses, and they are building these houses. They don't have the money to finance it fully. So they create condominiums where, that was what we call flats. They sell these flats to people. So people have joint interest, but they have to manage their common areas. And if they don't manage their common areas, they don't provide security in those buildings. The buildings will deteriorate over time. So what they do in other countries, they have condominium law, which forces them to set up a condominium corporation, and then which now creates a lien. A lien, you can't say, oh, I own this flat, but I can, right? The condominium association will have a statutory lien over your property. They will sell your property in order to get the money, recover the money you are owing to the association. We don't have these things tied up very well in our law in Nigeria, and Lagos State can lead in this area to prevent. Otherwise, I see in 20 years' time, Ikoyi will become a slum because they will not have the ability to maintain the quality. So we go to the what is happening in terms of technology and the IP issues that are associated with it. So new technology, you look at the Building Information Management System, BIM. You look at 3D printing and modular construction. Now they can print things from a printing machine. They print out something that is going to be in the building. They can build the most of the units of the building off-site, and they build it off-site, and then they just come and dump it there and put the next one on top of it and finish the construction. They can do 5 stories in 10 days. You saw it happen during COVID. They built hospitals that were 10 stories in 10 days in China. It's because of the modular system. The modular system, of course, each one has its own legal risk. So if you take the BIM system, where you have a software where there's a design and all the different parties are designing and putting into it, and it immediately fits in, you can have the IP issue, you can have liability issues, but there's usually protocol they agree, so there's collaboration. Now they are used to, one of us spoke about artificial intelligence, machine learning. You can see these are now, look at the way the future equipments are going to be. They will be carrying things and putting it, and not just rolling on the ground. Look at these 2 little equipment carrying this big slab. So everything is changing. They'll be using drones, robotics. Smart buildings will be on. Then the use of blockchain, smart contracts, now where you can have the contract is completely online, and the contract is online, and the contract is managing the whole construction process. So for instance, it's tied to a blockchain and it's tied to a BIM, a BIM program. So all your notices you issue directly into that system, and the system is going to have met the, so if the architect says you have met the requirement, it will certify the architect has confirmed for the regulator, as the regulator has told us that he has to come and inspect and give you go ahead to go to the next stage. If the regulator will make the entry into the system, then it says the system will say the regulator has confirmed, the architect has confirmed, then it will certify and say, well, where is the money? It will say yes. It will say the money is in this particular account. It will certify payment. Payment will go straight automatically to the contractor. No human intervention. I mean, this is incredible, but these are the way, the future where we are going to in construction. Then dispute resolution, of course, will have to change. I've said it that it has to be practically online. Already in countries like Canada and UK now, they do it by adjudication, where it's just you submit the documents and then that's it. A decision is made with timeline. But it's going to be completely time bound, it will be by adjudication. And then even, like I said, your design, your planning and project management is going to be driven by technology and all these things that I've said, and then your construction phase is going to be modular, modular and smart construction, right? Where you are using technology to make sure that you can deliver, and you are using superior materials that are lighter and stronger. And then for your project site and, COVID protocol, I've spoken about it, that, implementing these protocols, etc., there are ways that technology can help to make it, and then you can still deliver on the projects. For operations and maintenance, we are moving more towards smart buildings, where you have power going through the Ethernet system, and then you have all the equipment, you have Internet of Things, you have the light bulbs, the refrigerators, the air conditioners. You can switch them up from anywhere. So that will help you with like cost, so you can, from your home, you can say, no, there's light on in the office, you put it off, and things like that, without you having to go there. So that's the future. That's where we are going to. So in concluding, I would say that construction is about managing uncertainties about the design, the parties, and the delivery objective. So success in infrastructure and construction require defining the project delivery objective, understanding the risks, and then managing them using tested forms and practices. There are so many standard forms. I don't want to go into all those forms. They would be included in your tender and bid process. You can decide to, as I said in the beginning, you can either decide to do it ad hoc, or you use the forms that are there. You have the UK have their own. Even Nigeria has some, not so much, but there is one that is for road, like Federal Ministry of Housing has the one for road construction, right? We need to develop our own forms in Nigeria, because we are using UK one, joint contract forms, where they have the Canadian one, which is modeled almost about the same thing. You have the FedEc one, which is the international one by the Federation of Consulting Engineers, so we can develop our own, but you can use it for this. So standard forms, and practices help to manage this risk. But I say every standard form is dangerous. So you have to be very careful. You cannot just go and pick a standard form and use it. You need to use professionals who understand the standard forms, and then you need to know, depending on which party you are representing, how to amend it to suit yourself, because they are just forms. You don't have to accept everything, but you have to make sure that you use these tools in order to enable you to manage the uncertainties and then achieve your project delivery objective. So the quality of the outcome that you get on a construction or infrastructure project depends on the scope of that project, the time, and the cost available. So applying, please have your professional and have your construction lawyer by your side, and you'll be able to manage all these risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Idigwe, SAN. Chief Idigwe has tried to tie in, all the legal and statutory, or lack thereof, if you will, involved in construction projects. And we thank him for his paper. Very quickly, because time is fast spent, there's been a question that is in our chat box. And I believe Architect Oki is with us because this is purely about something that he mentioned. And so I'll read the question. It's from Miss Ene Demide. She says, one of the major reasons construction companies go through third parties to get building permits is because of the long period it takes to get building approvals. Question, why should it take over 2 months to get building approval when all the stakeholders involved to check drawings submitted have been employed in the organization? Most projects are given a very short timeline for completion, and the long periods government takes to get this approach really delays the process. I'm aware that Architect Oki had mentioned that the general manager of the Planning Permit Authority had tried to streamline the process, but I don't know if he would have any further thoughts about this question that has been thrown.
Thank you very much. Hello? Hello?
Yes, please go on. Please go on, sir.
Yeah. The planning, like I said, the 2 months that we are talking about is just plus or minus. When you look at the planning process, it's not anything that takes less than a week or two, because the basic thing that needs to be done has been done in the first place. And that is the issue of the architectural drawing being checked, the structural drawing, electrical, mechanical, and the movement of the file from the district office to the from the recommending officer to the GM's office for approval. And in a situation whereby the drawing is above a particular height, the building will have to go to the PS office. You know, each and every accounting officer has the approval limit. The general manager has his approval limit. The GM, the PS has the approval limit. The honorable commissioner has to have his own approval limit. And the particular height goes to Mr. Governor's office. So when you look at the process, irrespective of the level we are talking about, if we are talking about a ground floor, a story building, is not something that we need, that will take more than enough time. But when you are looking at an approval that is going to Mr. Governor, apart from the fact that the recommending officer has recommended that the building, the drawing and everything is okay, the GM will have to do the due diligence to be sure that what has been recommended by the recommending officer is in line with the approval. And if the same thing is going to the PS, put it in mind that the PS is not going to come to site. It's going to read through what the recommending officer has done. It's going to check what the GM has done. And before going to that, it's going to minute it to the planning officer that are working in his office to check and do the needful. Before that is when he or she is going to, the PS is going to give an approval. And likewise, if the commissioner is going to do the same. So all these processes are checkmating, because we are talking about, okay, there is a problem now that we are looking at. The fans are complaining that there are a lot of construction within the fan boundary. To determine the area of fans boundary, there are a lot of buildings that are there, and some of them are claiming that they have an approval. What type of approval do they have? If it's not an approval that has to get to the Honorable Commissioner office, what sorts of due diligence have been done before getting to find out that people just say they have an approval and they don't have the approval? So the process is plus or minus. You can get it in less than 2-3 weeks. You can get it in 2 months, depending on the height that we are talking about. So if we are talking of 15-20 story building, it weighs beyond. It's not just something that you just give an approval. There is transportation that is involved. You have to go to transportation. You have to deal with drainage. You have to check it. The Ministry of Environment has to check it. So once all those things are put in place, the time limit is not as more as we look at it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. What I heard the Honorable General Manager say very clearly is about government on the one hand is trying to be, protecting the public's interest, ensuring that the necessary things have been done. And, for every level, there's a certain official that must approve. And so it still ties to what Chief Idigba has even mentioned, and as well as Mr. Olusodo, that at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, technology is indispensable, because a way to cut off a lot of time in all this processing would simply be if we have a portal, for example, where the appropriate recommending official, is just at that portal saying, okay, I have looked at XYZ, and then he, types his comments there in the portal, and that is done. And it's done in real time. So I'm happy that we have Lagos State government representatives here, and it's something that we should definitely look into. And thank you so much, Architect Cookie, for your response. I have a question actually for Mr. Olusodo from LSDPC. Because he had alluded, okay, maybe before my question, let me answer my audience. I can see Sade Thompson has raised her hand, I believe. Okay, can I please ask that you limit your question to 1 minute, you introduce yourself, ask which panelist you would like to answer your question, and you ask your question directly. Please, 1 minute, time is fast spent. So Sade, please, you have the floor.
Sade, my name is Aden Rele. Question for Architect Cookie. I have to commend you. The Lagos State of today, when it comes to approval, is much, much better than the Lagos State, even of 5 years ago. So I do recognize, I do commend what you guys are doing. A question for you. Are you allowed to apply for groundworks approval while the approval process is ongoing? And if you are, does that cause delay to your actual approval application? So.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello.
Hey. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. The basic routine is for you to get your planning permit approved. Once you have an approval, that is when you now apply and write a letter to building control that you want to start. Like I said earlier, that the next thing, the best, when you send in the letter, the officers from building control, like I said, that we are just checkmating officer. We are not the one doing the main design work or probably the construction. Just to checkmate, we are just like your friend. We are like somebody that can say, okay, yes, I have a second opinion. That is what building control office is. But to ensure that you are building in relation to the approval that is given to you, to conform with what is given to you. But once you've gotten your approval, you write a letter to us, we give you the green sticker. That is for you that everything you are doing is in line with the Lagos State government. And every other stages will come down there to do the needful by going through the casting, the iron work, the form work, and everything that you have done. And once all those things is in place, we check the partition work. People you want to increase your kitchen, you want to expand, you want to reduce your room. All those things, once you do that, that means that you are not conforming. But once you are finished and they know that those are the things that you have done, all you just need to do is just write to planning permit that you want to get an approval as built in relation to the first approval that has been given to you. But because we are looking at, okay, people want to start construction, that is why we have the officer moving around to look at a situation, in all cases, there are situations whereby what remains, the person is looking out for is just to get the approval and approach the building control office, because we are trying our best to stop the issue of collapse. Because we found out that if the officers, we don't check, there are other things that come up, apart from the fact that you have your contractor is the normal person that you are paying. He is having a profit on whatever that is doing. The building control is ensuring that the profit, the construction, the material that is using is in line with the regulation in relation to the building code. We have a standard building code. That is why they are there. That is why we find out that when they do any other thing there that is not in line, they tell them that they should refer to the building code or refer to the drawing that you are giving approval. The rate at which you call your bars on the drawings. And you find out that some engineers said, no, that is just for approval. But what you have submitted for the structural drawing that is for approval, that is what the building control officer that is coming to charge is having, and that's what he's looking at. So those are the things that we are here doing. But there are always a situation whereby you look at, okay, fine, this person has paid, he's expecting his approval shortly. Then once he comes down, the SD doesn't have the right. That comes to the general manager. And in that case, I have to discuss with the general manager planning permit that this is the situation. Then we look at it and we give an authorization for the person to start the construction. But before doing that, all the due diligence must be done.
So my question to Mr. Olusodo, can I please ask that we all mute or the organizers mute everyone that is not speaking? But my question to Mr. Olusodo is, because he had mentioned that, you know, the Family Housing Fund, you know, plans to build 300,000 homes in all 36 states of Nigeria. And then he had mentioned some of his concerns about how there are peculiar conditions and, you know, issues in different states. So what's maybe the situation in Lagos State is not what's the situation in, say, Nasarawa State. And so my question then is, there's this general perception that even though I know you had mentioned that there's some low and medium cost housing accommodation that LSDPC has actually delivered, but there's this general perception that only the rich can afford Lagos State accommodation. And so are there any strategies or policies that are being considered or in place to make housing and access to finance, more simply speaking, more accessible, really more affordable for the common man? Because at the end of the day, if we have all the beautiful houses, you know, with quality materials, but the common man cannot afford them, then we still have our housing deficit issue stuck in our hands. So I don't know if there are any policies or strategies that LSDPC is considering or perhaps is already implementing to address this issue.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I need to first ask, you know, I'm not a learned person, but the first question would be, what's your definition of a common man? But anyway, let me come back to the question. I'm sure the learned silk will help me answer that question. The definition of a common man. Anyway, I think that what the government has tried to do basically is to segment the market, and the Lagos State Ministry of Housing uses taxpayers' funds to build affordable houses. We cannot, like I said, as LSDPC, we're going to do, when we're doing Lagos homes, the government actually provided the funding. And so we were more or less like the agency that handled the contracting part of it, and we coordinated the construction to ensure that it was delivered. I'm not sure we want to go back to the era where we have to borrow funds from the commercial bank, short-term funds to do housing. So what the government is doing basically is affordable housing is done from the Ministry of Housing, and they use taxpayers' funds to do that. I know that those houses, what they have first decided to do is to complete those ones that were under construction. And those are the ones that are being commissioned now. They're being completed and being commissioned. We're doing one now in the started also by the previous administration, and it's been completed now. We're completing it, and we're going to hand it over back to the government, you know, to the Ministry of Housing. And so we have such projects being done. We have, last year, we also commissioned, the Lagos State government commissioned the one in, what they call now, Idimo, towards Idimo, one of those old commissioned houses that was being done, you know, one of the old ones that they did. was also commissioned. So one was commissioned in Badagry last month, I think, yes, bungalows. So there's several of them, so in different locations. And let me add that the Lagos Mortgage Board is also there. They also provide rent-to-own schemes for which makes houses more affordable and access, available to almost everyone. So the rent-to-own schemes are also available through the Lagos Mortgage Board. This was an organization set up during the Governor Fashola administration, and they work in collaboration with Lagos Building Investment Company, which is the mortgage company of Lagos State. LBIC provides the mortgage. They also access National Housing Fund for those who want to. So if you want to access the National Housing Fund, I know there are 5 million contributors to National Housing Fund as we speak. The last time I spoke to the GM, he told me that they had over 5 million contributors in the country. Of course, that's a low figure considering our population, but at least people have started responding. So you can approach LBIC or any of the mortgage banks, and then you can, then apply for any of these houses. Some of these Lagos homes buildings are up for sale directly. Some are through mortgage. I think there was a 10-year mortgage initially available. Now you can also access the National Housing Fund, and then some are for rent to own. So there are several of them. So what we do as LSDBC, from our profit, we pay dividend to the state. So we use such dividend to subsidize the provision of these affordable housing estates. So that's basically what we do. We have one estate in Ikorodu somewhere, that we're looking at doing affordable housing. We're already talking to private developers who have also approached us to say, LSDBC, can we? So we're looking at how do we do that? What it will going to take, what the government does in some of these affordable houses, the government provides infrastructure. For all those Lagos homes, the government more or less subsidized and provided the infrastructure, and that cost was not imputed into the final selling prices. So what people virtually are paying for is paying for probably, a subsidized house. Those houses are subsidized by government. So we're also looking at, what we have, what can be done. We actually spoke to Family Home Fund, like I said. We spoke to them, but the model, the prices they adopted cannot work for Lagos. Like I said, we need to first prepare the grounds. If I have to prepare the grounds and the cost of preparing where I want to build, in Lagos is more or less marshy, waterlogged, except for very few areas. Then you say to yourself, you realize that the cost cannot even, what you want to sell, there's no way it can fall under affordable housing. But I know that as we improve what we're doing and we begin to do more of regeneration, especially within the metropolis, where we have infrastructure available already, and we go vertical. And like the Lanet Seal said, we adopt technology, construction technology that makes it very fast and easy to build, and they're not as expensive. It's easier to also increase the number. Once we increase the supply, then I believe that things will get better. So it's just that what we're building is not very limited compared to the volume of what we expected we should be building by now. So I think it's something we'll keep looking at. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you. I think my final question, or maybe second to last question, would be to, and please, for our audience, even though we'll soon be wrapping up because time is fast spent, if there are any questions, again, you can use the raise hand function or the question and answer chat box. I remember Mr. Gbadaola mentioning that he would even prefer if a dispute does not even go to, does not materialize and have to be going to arbitration or, adjudication or anything. Interestingly, when the poll question came up about what do you think is the best method for resolving construction disputes, I think only one person actually voted for adjudication, which from Chief Idigwe's paper, you can see is actually the most suitable method, And again, I'm sure CG is aware of, even before dispute resolution, there are the concepts of dispute avoidance and dispute management. So in the first place, you want to even prevent that dispute from coming up. But again, we know we can't control everything. So how do we now manage the dispute when it comes? And then when, unfortunately, we're unable to manage it, then how do we now look at alternative methods of resolving it? So very simply, my question is, now we're stuck into the COVID-19 pandemic. No one knows when we would eventually come out of it. How has this impacted perhaps on your drafting of dispute resolution clauses in your contracts, in your in perhaps your contracts of sale, your deeds of assignment that you issue your subscribers? Bearing in mind that there will certainly be the claims that you have, enumerated during your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mo. So clearly, I mean, the realities that has befall us has made us personally to also look inward more. So what we have done in drafting some of these dispute resolution clauses, for instance, is we take a multi-layered approach, right? First off, I start from regular conversations, mediations. Then subsequently, we delve into, say, mediation, and then subsequently into arbitration if we have to get to the point. But practical situations majorly has always been that to a very large extent, we will most possibly resolve any issue as it may be before it even gets to the extent of mediation. Usually, most times, the most you have to go is going to be through mediation, and for the most part, we're all aware of the Lagos State multi-door courthouse. To a very large extent, it has also been very, very instrumental, even if we have to get to that mediation stage, because the majority of people find it more to be of a neutral ground in achieving those. But most times, we usually try as much as possible to ensure that through negotiation, mutual discussions, we resolve those disputes. However, in the contracts, we go the long haul of having these various options, ranging first from mutual discussions through to mediations, and then if it becomes very, very inevitable, yes, we might end up at litigation, provided we're all sure of all the terms and have all the I's and T's dotted, basically.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I think my final question then would be to, and I may or may not be speaking the minds of some of our audience here, but when Chief Idigbe SAN was speaking about the future, it sounded a bit idyllic in terms of, there's blockchain, and an official just goes and says, I have, well, let's say, for example, the property, the lawyer, says this property has been transferred from Mr. A to XYZ Limited, and it sounds very good on paper, but then something that, will I say, the Nigerian factor, issues of integrity, issues of whether people would actually uphold the ethics, how would we balance it? Because yes, we know what is happening in these more developed countries, if you permit me to use that word, but then we know our peculiarities in Nigeria. So, sir, Chief Idigbe, how do we balance, the need for technology in our system with our peculiarities in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mobo, for that very excellent question. I will use the example of insolvency in Nigeria. Prior to 2020, anybody could become appointed as receiver manager, and there was no guarantee that the person had knowledge of insolvency. But today, it has changed. And I know many people are struggling to qualify and get the knowledge and then be registered by CSE for them to be able to get appointment as receiver managers and other insolvency. Either stay where we are or we can make progress. Law reform is a constant thing. I also remember a long time ago when there was the reform on pension, and they said, no, the pension system we have is so bad, we need to have a better system. And then they changed it. Some people were sitting on the fence who were doing insurance business and pension business, and they didn't bother to comply with the law. Eventually, it took about 2-3 years of implementing the law. They all lost their pension portfolio to the PFAs, and now is the biggest source of long-term money in Nigeria today. And the pension scheme has been extremely successful. I want to go to telecommunication. And, when we were stranded, we could not develop our landlines, and then the mobile system was not developing, and then we restructured the system, created an independent regulator, had the competitive auction system, and see today where we are now in terms of penetration of telephone, usually through mobile. So I have a lot of faith and hope that things will change. I have a lot of faith and hope that, the professionals will change, both those who would run the new system and even the other professionals who provide services in construction, like the designers, the contractors, will have to change their behavior. For instance, if there is a new law in Nigeria, let's say Lagos State should do a construction law, and under that construction law, there is a prompt payment provision, right? Based on notice, you must pay within a certain period of time. And after that, maybe adjudication will be triggered. Now, I have a lot of faith that the companies will all start changing their behavior. They will start changing how they do business to comply with that law. And when you have regulators like, on your back, right, implementing that law, there's no way that the players in the industry will not change. And the reality, just to add, that except we get the legal and regulatory framework right, the government cannot meet all the housing needs, they cannot meet all the commercial needs, they cannot meet all the industrial needs that CG has already pointed out at the beginning. It must be private sector that will meet it. The role of government is not really to do these things. The role is to create the enabling environment and enforce the law and create the standards and ensure that the groups are organized, have ethics provision, have their own internal self-regulatory mechanism, then impose on it a statutory mechanism to catch those who escape the net of their own self-regulatory mechanism. So if I think human beings are the same everywhere, it depends. Is it not the same Nigerians when they go abroad, they comply? So why would they not comply in Nigeria? And in any event, I've just told you that this system is applicable in Nigeria today. When I first raised the issue, people laughed and coughed at me that this is how title is changed. It's changed by a statement made by the lawyer. The lawyer, if there's a something they give you, like a flash disk, they give you to enable you to access the portal. It's not, you can't just dial in like that. The security is very tight. So you have to have UBS or something. Then you are able to log into the system, and then you can make that statement. But before then, you have complied between you and the other lawyer. You have all the documents, and you have to keep those documents for 7 years, right? But it is the statement you make into the system that actually transfers the title. And they say it's impossible, it can never work in Nigeria. But today in Nigeria, it is the statement that a bank or financial statement, a finance company makes into the National Collateral Registry that actually creates the security interest in a movable asset in Nigeria today. So why can't we just expand it to the immovable asset? Then also, why can't we expand the registration of titles law, which is working very well between Ikoyi and Fadeyi, blockchain guarantees you can't have two of the same. So we use blockchain technology, or there are different technologies that you can use to ensure that that happens. It is doable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you. I do not see any pending questions from any of our audience. And so I think this is an appropriate time to end our webinar. I must express our sincere gratitude to our speakers, from Mr. Sijibomi Agbadaola to Mr. Adeola Olusodo, Bolaho Oki, and definitely my boss, Senior Partner Chief Anthony Digbe, SAN. I thank all of you for sharing your knowledge so freely with us this afternoon. I definitely thank our audience for being with us as well. We hope that you have enjoyed and benefited from the discussions that have happened this afternoon. By no means does this purport to be legal advice. Chief Idigbe had mentioned that please carry along your construction lawyer with you along the way. PUNUKA Attorneys and Solicitors obviously has the expertise to do that. I also see in the chat box that the information for inquiries on membership for the Construction and Infrastructure Chamber of Nigeria has been put up there. I encourage us all to look at, to email if we have any inquiries about joining that that organization, that body. So I thank everyone for spending your afternoon with us. If you have any inquiries, you can also email us at info@punuka.com. And please enjoy your afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.